right, folks. Well, are we in for a treat or what? When you hear that music, you know it's time for another episode of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. My name's Jim Reed. I'm going to be your host today. Bluff Sterini in the home game, and you can find out about me and all the other members of the Wrecking Crew by going to rec.poker/crew. But you could also just listen to Rob Washam because he's about to tell you right now where you can find him.
Yeah, I'm Rob Washam. You can find me as Ratman50 just about anywhere you look.
And anywhere you look around Rec Poker, you're going to see lots of amazing stuff, mostly thanks to our sponsors, the website AMP and Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. So thanks to them for making all this possible. And thanks to our premium members who are chipping in $15 a month to help us keep the lights on here. It's a great way to show your support. Whether you're taking advantage in our learning materials or not, it makes a big difference to us, and we really do appreciate it. So folks like Roger Lamp, Roger, who I play in the home games with all the time, a man Shamu, who's been on a streak recently. I saw him in the winner's circle not too long ago. And folks like Dan Wick. Dan's an active member in our strategy conversations. He's been a participant in the Focus, where he did some hand breaks down himself with Flopzilla. And yeah, another great premium member here. So Dan and Roger, thank you both very much for your support. And for everyone else, you can go to rec.poker/support and find a way to keep us going, whether it's for free, just by liking or subscribing to a couple things, or going to our Patreon page, or like some of these wonderful folks becoming premium members here. Because that's what we're all about here at Rec Poker, sharing our love of poker and our learning of poker with every other amateur, recreational, thoughtful, serious, fun poker player that we can find. So thanks for tuning into the show. Kind of got us off the rails there a little bit here, but it's Monday night. Every Monday we record an episode of the podcast. We're usually stealing each other's chips in the Play Money home game on PokerStars, and we're going to take a post from the Rec Poker forums and talk about it here on the air. So I always encourage our listeners, go get a free account at rec.poker and read up in the forums yourself. It's perfectly free. All it takes is an email address and a smile, and you can see the images that people upload. People upload different solver outputs, hand history files, a lot more information than we'll be able to get into here on the show. But go and check that out. And we're also joined today by John Crowell, who's an active premium member who's been sitting in on a few of these podcast episodes, like all our premium members are welcome to do. So thanks for coming, John, and sharing your 2 cents.
You're welcome.
So this is a spot that our very own Ratman50 posted. And this is a spot that comes up, I think, for a lot of players, where we're holding, in this case, Rob's holding pocket eights, which is a pretty strong hand. And we just see some action in front of us that makes us unsure about how to proceed. So Rob, I'll run through the opener here. It looks like you're in the big blind with about 30 big blinds, and most of the other players at the table cover you. A middle position player raises to 2.2. They get a call from the cutoff. The button raises to 7.5, and then the small blind calls and comes along as well. So we've got a pretty big pot already. Assuming the open raiser and the caller call, it's going to go 4-way plus you if you choose to get involved here. And holding 8-8, it is kind of a what am I going to do moment. And I'm sure you considered folding, calling, and raising, because those are the big three. Why don't you just take us through what was going through your mind and when you decided to put this post out here?
Well, it seems like these multi-player spots happen so often in the small ACR tournaments that I play. Yeah, I'm playing usually around anywhere from $3 to $10 tournaments. So I'm playing these little ones with tons of players. And then early on in the tournament, you see all kinds of really weird action going on. I mean, I don't know if, players are thinking, well, I'm just going to see if I can double up or rebuy or what's going on. But you see a lot of really weird action. And then even here, where we've gone quite a bit deeper, because, you see some people that are in the 30 big blind level. So, we're a little deeper in the tournament, but we're still miles and miles away from the money. And you see all of this type of action going on. It's just, it confuses me. Whenever we go multi-way, it just confuses me because you get the big, in online, you're watching the table, and the first thing you see is your cards pop up. You go,
Right.
I got pocket eights.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
start doing it. You get up from your chair and start doing a little jig because you're real happy because you got a real hand for a change. It's not 2-7. It's not 4-9. It's not, some crappy hand. You got actually something that you feel you can play. And then this happens. And you go, oh man. So what are you going to do with that? We got some good responses in here.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Fritz posted that he has run this spot in a lot of different sims. And he says we have, once it's open, flatted, and 3-bet, our range massively shrinks. We're usually only going like Jack, Jack, or Queen, Queen to continue with. Ace 10 suited to Ace Jack suited and Ace King, Ace Queen offsuit. So a very tight range. Basically, not even 9s and 10s are hands that we should be folding here.
Mm.
So according to the sims that Tim has run, Jacks is probably the only hand you want to proceed with at this level.
Yeah, and that puts us in a tricky spot for sure. Yeah, it's Tim Misclick Donkey Fritz, another member of the Wrecking Crew. He's a great member of the crew here. And I guess, when we're talking about that, this is as a call, I guess, because we're obviously, these hands were probably shoving
at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
proceeding
yeah,
at
yeah.
all. Whether
Right.
you call or you shove, or because there's no 3-bet size or 4-bet size. It's not a shove.
Right.
So we're looking at either shoving or folding. There is no raising here. So yeah, my first instinct is, well, I'm just going to shove it in.
Mhm.
The problem is, if one person had raised, I may have done that. If one person had raised and another person have called, I probably would have 3-bet. I probably would have 3-bet to 8, because I think you could probably 3-bet to 8 without having to go all in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when this kind of action happens, you don't have the option of 3-betting. You have to 4-bet, jam, or fold. And so I didn't put what I did here, but I did fold. I mean, it was a pretty automatic fold once it came to me. It's just that I wonder what other people's thoughts were, and where's that cusp hand that we can actually start getting aggressive.
Yeah, and yeah, take it, John.
Well, when I'm in these spots, one of the things I think that is obvious to you as well, Rob, is that you might be in there against 5 people. And even though your pocket 8s might be 50% against Ace Queen, or let's say 53% against Ace Queen, you've got to divide that roughly by 4 or 5 based on the number of people. So your equity is dramatically lower for each additional player that's in the hand.
Right. Yeah, great point. And it's not and we're shallow enough that we can't, as Elvita points out here, we don't have a big enough stack size to get the odds to set mine with our pocket pair here, because, and 8s are maybe too strong for that anyway, but I'm just trying to think about other factors that might be at play in a spot like this. When I get those middle pocket pairs, I'm usually inclined to play them as a call in deeper stack situations, because I like flopping sets, because I'm not very good at poker, and it's just easier when you flop sets. Trust me, poker is a lot easier. Just flop a bunch of sets. But here, when you only have 30 big blinds, it's just too big a portion of your stack to call. And especially being out of position is another factor that's going to make that not a good decision. So then it is, Rob's hit the nail on the head here. I think it's a shove or a fold. And I think it's just too much action out there to feel really good about shoving those 8s. I think I probably sigh, take a little time, and then pitch them into the muck myself as well. And that is the consensus in the in the forum here. So Elvita mentions that point about the effective stack not being deep enough to set mine. And 5x5, Chris says there's mostly a fold. Could get behind a jam if we have the perfect storm of factors at play at the table. So we could talk about that a little bit. Like, what would be the circumstances that would make us more inclined to jam this? And Rob, you already said right off the bat, just fewer players involved.
Fewer players, yes. And then one of the things that, John mentioned is very, very accurate, is that the more people that get involved in the hand, the more your odds are spread and your specific odds shrink. One thing that could be in your favor is, based on that action, a lot of those people are sharing cards. So, you could have a couple of ace kings out there and an ace jack. Well, now the aces are pretty much taken care of. So you might have a better opportunity of fading some of those big hands if you with that much action. So even if just one of those people called, the other people fold. Well, they're folding out a lot of cards that might help this guy if he doesn't have a pocket pair bigger than mine. So that's kind of an interesting take that we don't really talk about too much of the, taking each other's outs. But in general, though, yeah, there's no way I'm going to proceed with pocket eights here.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Rob, about sharing each other's outs like that and counterfeiting each other, because that does kind of skew us towards preferring to have a big pocket pair in spots like this, as opposed to the two overcards. Whereas in some cases, you might even prefer to have ace king or something in a spot. John, did you have something there?
No, I was just wondering about the buttons range here.
Yeah.
With that three bet, and assuming, as Rob said, if we were in this hand with less players, would we proceed if it was just the original open and the three bet from the button? Because obviously the three bet from the button could be a lot lighter than someplace else, and whether technically a pair is a favorite to an ace king or an ace queen or an ace jack, and they would certainly have plenty of those in their range. Would we be calling this if it were just the other two players in the hand?
I think if let's just say as long as we have an open and we have a call, and then we have the button three betting. So the button is in a perfect squeeze situation, which means that his range now is a lot wider, because he's in that squeeze spot. The opener has to have a really strong hand to call or to go over the top of a three bet. And the person that just called the original open can't have that big of a hand. Otherwise he would have three bet. So you got that squeeze going on that button could be taken advantage of. The problem is the small blind called.
Right.
It's like, oh man. Now, if the small blind hadn't called, I might take that initiative and just go ahead and jam this, expecting the first two players to fold and be up against that squeezing range of the button.
I love that. That's what I was thinking too. I mean, it's got to look super strong to the original raiser to get called and then three bet and then have this cold four bet come out of the blinds like that.
A cold three bet call.
Oh, I meant in the world where they didn't call. Yeah. Where you are taking that.
The three bet did a cold, the small blind cold three bet, cold called a three bet.
Yes.
A three bet.
Yeah. And
that's stronger that's very strong.
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that. And let's just take a look at how many big blinds were they coming off. At that one, the small blind had 37 big blinds. So they should not be calling 7 big blinds off 37 very wide. If I had to guess, I'm putting them on like 9s through jacks, maybe like ace jack suited or something very particular like that, that they felt like they couldn't fold, but didn't want to four bet with. And that's the player that alarms me. That should be such a super narrow range that has us beat pretty
Yeah,
bad.
but if you think, look at Chris's response, I put the stats of the players
Mm,
that were at the table. So the small blind, I had 64 hands on them, and they were at 21% with 0 raises, pre-flop
oh,
raises, and 0 3-bets.
so they're VPIPing 21. They're
20%.
21-0.
Right.
Okay.
21-0.
Right.
21-0-0. So it's like
Right.
they're
Hmm.
very passive, but the fact that they're cold calling a 3-bet means that still has to be a very strong range.
Does it though? Okay. So last week on the show, it was the three of us, and we were talking about leveling opponents, right? So this is a spot where if we think that this player is a savvy player, then that calling range in the small blind should be tens, jacks, and like, yeah, a very narrow, strong range. But if this is a less savvy player, maybe they just like calling. Like maybe they don't understand the what has happened here, how strong the action is to get the open, the call, the 3-bet. They're just like, well, I've got 7-8 suited, maybe I'll hit a straight or a flush. If we had more information about this player, that might be the TSN turning point for me, that made me decide that it was time to shove, because this is the player that I think has, I guess, other than the under the gun, or other than the original Razor, they haven't really capped their range yet.
The original Razor is uncapped.
Yeah.
So they could definitely have a strong hand, but by jamming here, we're probably going to go against one of those initial 3.
Yeah.
And depending on how passive the small blind is they might just call with any old garbage that they might be calling with anyway.
Right.
They're not prone to be raising. So, you might almost be able to get away with it in this spot, because you're putting the ultimate squeeze on 4 players now.
Mm-hmm. Because it does present as very, very strong. It does present as very, very strong. So yeah, I think that's that small blind player that's calling. That's the one that really, I think, sort of, if we knew more about them, that might help us understand if there was another play to make here. But I think I'm finding the muck. Has played as well. And so is there, as played, do we like Tim Misclick Donkey's assumption? Would we get it in with jacks here? Ace Queen. Let's say that we cannot call, and I don't think we can call really.
No. No.
I mean, we're not. It's allowed. No one's going to arrest us, but
Right.
I don't think we should consider it. So if we are playing shove or fold, what do you guys feel like, personally speaking? What's the worst hand you're going to shove here? The worst pair and the worst unpaired hand? Because I think we're all shoving kings. We're all shoving aces. I mean, we're probably all shoving ace king.
Mm-hmm.
So then where do we find that point where we're no longer feeling perfectly comfortable, but we still think it's like, we're still going to get it in there? What do you think, Rob?
I might go with jacks, queens, and ace queen suited.
Mm-hmm.
And then aces, kings, and ace king, obviously. So jacks and queens, I might go for here. I mean, again, we're miles away from the
right, from the bubble.
Miles away from the bubble. We're in this chip accumulation phase. We need to be accumulating chips, and so this might be the stand we take if we have one of those premium hands.
Mm-hmm. What about you, John? What are you going to be comfortable getting in here?
I'm comfortable getting queens in. I'm probably getting jacks in 50% of the time, depending on just whatever read I have on people. Ace king, I'm obviously suited. I'm also uncomfortable with ace king off, but I'm probably getting it in. But I don't think I'm going any lower than that.
And then as we get closer to the bubble, we might make different decisions. And if we had different chip stacks, or if the other players in the hand had different chip stacks, we might pip up or down on a couple of spots like that. But I think that's a good consensus. And we just don't have enough information about the players to really get too frisky. Looks like
interesting. It's interesting that MP1 is the initial raiser, and they had 30 big blinds.
Yep.
The cutoff had 36. The button had 51, and the small blind had 36. So now we are putting a lot of pressure on some 30 big blind stacks
Mhm.
because we can do a lot of damage to them
Mhm.
if they called us. So, this might have been a spot that I should have taken. I don't know.
Talking yourself back
I'm
into the
talking
shove here.
myself back into
Well, when I look at these stats, the button's running 25. So his VPIP is 25, his PFR is 14, and his 3-bet is 9. So 9% is a pretty robust 3-bet range. We've got 103 hands on him, so it's still a pretty small sample size.
Mhm.
But if he is 3-betting 9%, then he's squeezing even wider than that.
Yes. Yeah.
And in position like he's going to be, that would indicate to me that he's probably going to feel, he or she's going to feel a little wider there as well, a little more comfortable. So maybe that button 3-bet isn't as strong as we've been thinking it might be out of the textbook. And then that's such an amazing stat on the small blind player, 21-0. You just don't see that in the wild very often.
Yeah.
So
it's 64 hands.
64 hands. Yeah.
It's not small. I mean, it's
Right.
not a small. I mean, it really doesn't, overall, it's probably not that significant, but in the context of this poker tournament that we're in, it's pretty significant because ACR has this habit of moving people around all the time.
Right.
And it's like you go all in on one hand, the next hand they're moving you to a different table. So it's hard to get stats on tournaments very much. So the fact that I have 64 hands on this person means I've been at the table with him for a while.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Chris Jones is so smart. So he's got this note in the bottom of his forum post here. It says, if I knew the button was 3-betting too wide and the small blind was passively calling too much, then I could get behind a jam, because now we're mostly against the wide opening and flatting ranges from MP1 and the cutoff. We might actually get this through in that case. And when we don't, we may not be in that rough of shape. But I don't think we have enough data or quite enough of these extremes to go for it. So I like a fold. I think that's probably right.
Probably
Chris.
right.
That's why he's the director of membership content.
Yep. And I'm an old nit, so I folded.
That's why he's playing in the Venom and we're not.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm playing $6 tournaments and he's playing in the Venom.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, well, that's a good conversation because when we first looked at this hand, we thought, okay, relatively trivial fold. But I love talking about poker with you guys because we just find all these different factors to consider. We find a few rabbit holes to go down, and all of a sudden it's like, turns out poker is a little more complicated than we thought. Saints preserve us, man. I mean, how are we ever supposed to answer a simple question ever again? It's always, it always depends, doesn't it? Oh, well. Mixed. Just say, Rob. Just say that you fold and shove according to a mixed strategy.
Yeah.
And you just never need to reveal the details of the mixed strategy. That's my new go-to. I'm like, oh, I'm perfectly mixed in this spot, and I just make the right decision every time. Yeah, that's the best way. That's the best way.
Now,
All
they
right.
don't have GTO solvers for multi-way pots yet, so
True.
So you have to really look at your opponents and especially online, you're looking mainly at their stats and any notes that you may have taken on them from previous actions. So, it'd be a lot easier in a live tournament.
Right.
In a live tournament, I would look at this and I would be folding so fast.
That's not where I thought you were going to take that at all. So you're saying just because the players live, they're not as tricky, like they're going to be more honest about their
They're going
races
to be
and that
more
kind of stuff?
straightforward. Yes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're going to be more straightforward. When you're talking small stakes, daily tournaments at the casino, a lot of the players are going to be very straightforward.
Yep.
Now you get into the higher level ones, say 200 or more buy-ins, maybe the $500 buy-ins, you're going to get some more studied players that are capable of doing some of these things. But but for the general population of a small stakes tournament, like $60, $70 daily tournament at a casino, I would be folding this really, really fast because they're not doing this unless they got the goods.
Right. And this is just like we were talking about last week with John, right? This is where that balance would be helpful on their part, because we're sitting here saying, oh, well, they always have a strong hand here. I can exploitatively fold my pocket eights and not even have to worry about it. I'm going to sleep perfectly well tonight. I'm not going to wonder because this player is not sophisticated enough to have a balanced range here. So, we exploit them. We exploit them by folding to their strength. And that's a key play. I thought you were going to say, Rob, that if you're playing this live, you might be able to size up the player and get a sense of, what level are they on or where are they in their range? Because I think that could also, because this is very much a player dependent spot, which is like, can we make better assumptions about this player? Because if we can exclude some really strong hands from their range, I think it does change how this plays.
Well, the thing is, it's 4 players.
Right.
So you got 4 players involved in the hand. Now, when you're sitting at a 9-player table in a small stakes live casino, there are not going to be 4 players that are going to be playing standard GTO or balancing a range or saying, well, I could 3-bet wider here because I'm squeezing. There's not going to be that many players that are going to be able to go to that level, like we were talking last week, be at that level.
Right.
So that 1 or 2 of these players are looking at their 2 cards and saying, I'm going to play.
Yep. Good point. Yep. And they didn't drive all that way just to fold.
Exactly. They didn't drive all that way to go out right away either, to drive home. They want to play for a while. So
that's awesome.
They're not going to get
awesome.
involved unless they got some real cards.
Yep. Yeah. So danger, Will Robinson. All right. Well, I think that's a really good conversation. So thank you to Rob Washam. Thank you to John Crowell. And of course, Misclick Donkey, Elvita, and 5x5 for their excellent forum posts. And Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and a website AMP. And you, the listeners.